All right, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Undiplomatic Immunity Podcast. I'm joined here today with my friend Bryson.
Hey, what's up?
He has his own podcast called The Black Politics Show with Bryson and Hutch. It's a good podcast, a great podcast, even very informative. I remember a couple months back we were talking about making podcasts because there weren't a lot of people like us or even that thought like us in the space. We decided to jump in and just start making some. You made yours early on, and I've been tuned in to each episode, and now I'm getting mine started probably at the craziest time of the year. Uh, but a lot is happening all over the world in domestic and foreign politics, and we're gonna break some of that down today. Did you see the stuff with the AOC vote in Congress?
I did. I, it is sad, and I think Republicans, I forgot who it was that called it out, was essentially like AOC is a good communicator, and she should be kind of the speaker. She is one of the younger members of Congress. She's done a lot, so I've seen a little bit about it, not super in depth on it, but I definitely think that AOC should have been, nominated. Um, I personally think that we need younger people representing not only the party but also the nation as a whole. So
Yeah, and I thought it was crazy too myself. Like, and at the same time as this vote was happening, like Nancy Pelosi had broke her hip in Germany, and so it was weird to me. Like, all right, that should have been if I was voting, that would have been a clear sign to me. I can't vote for this man. The person advocating for him is the ex speaker, uh, and she's here whipping votes for him and saying like, "Oh, age shouldn't matter" and all that stuff. And then she breaks her hip and has to get an emergency hip surgery in Germany. Like that would have made me go, "Oh, nah, nah, nah. We can't let this gerontocracy continue." And I think he has esophagus cancer currently, and he's gonna miss the first like month of the year or two because he has to go through I believe chemo and everything like that. I could be wrong, but he has to go through all that stuff, and so it's like you wanted to start off a Trump presidency where you need strong people in on special committees, not special committees. That's not a special committee. Uh, that's the what committee is that? The accountability committee or something like that. And here you are like, oh, I'm gonna miss half the freaking year. Like we something's got to get better. We can't. The Democratic Party can't continue to keep these people that are not interesting, or I wouldn't even say interesting, but like they're far past their prime, and you're continuing to keep them in leadership positions, and then wonder why when you turn around and look for candidates or a presidential candidate, you can't find anybody because you've iced out all the younger people.
I definitely agree. I'm trying to find some information on, I forgot his name, but I know he's a representative from Virginia. And so I think that O'Connelly or whatever, Gary Connolly, sorry.
Yeah,
And so I just think it's really sad that I don't know, like I think it's sad that both parties have allowed uh, kind of the eldest members to represent the nation, which I think the median age in the US is what, like 34, 35.
yeah.
So you've got people that are almost triple the median age representing the United States, which I don't think is very representative of the US populace as a whole. But I also think that it's not future proof. I think that AOC, she has what, she's in her 30s, so she's got, years left. And so I think that the parties need to do better on both sides about future proofing um, their, I guess, platforms, if that makes sense, by bringing in some of these younger candidates. And I think that people like AOC, people like Crockett, these younger people on the right side, I have to commend Trump for bringing in Vance, even though I'm not a fan of him. He's a younger candidate, someone that is in his what, late 30s, early 40s. And so I think that it's just both parties need to do a better job of representing the U.S. populace. But I think that that needs to also be done to secure that kind of longevity of both parties.
Yeah, like there's it's a lot of rising stars in the Democratic Party that need their like, day in the sun. Like you have Maxwell Frost and Greg Casar. Um I believe he's from Texas and like or he could be from Florida too with Maxwell Frost, but these are young voices in the party that want to take this party in a different direction and make it better and make it modern. I think Greg Casar is now in charge of the progressive caucus in Congress, which I'm excited for. But even on that caucus, like they relinquished power and was like, "Oh, you're younger, yes, you lead this. You know the direction we want to go in." Boom. It's just really like the old guard, and I don't know, like it's starting to get to the point where it's like, did you learn your lesson? Are you learning a lesson at all? Like you can't half you can't half ass stuff and expect people everyday people to just be like, "Oh yeah, I'll just get behind you and vote for you." Um, and the Republican Party, like one thing, like you committed them more earlier, like they went with Vance, and it was like a crazy pick. He didn't have that much experience, and I have my gripe with experience in some cases where it's like experience. You may have more experience, but you're out of touch, you're out of date. Like you no longer fit in with what the average person wants anymore. You're trying to do old politics that don't exist anymore. Um, like how I was saying with how the Democratic Party, in my opinion, like, I voted for the Democratic Party, have been for a while. Like I do a lot of campaign stuff for them. But this time around it was like you're trying to do and conduct politics in a way that doesn't work anymore. Like you're trying to have this the same like when they go low we go high stuff. No, we don't live in that day and age anymore. Like I want my politicians fighting for me and act like showing me that they're fighting for me and not throwing their hands up when uh they lose a vote in Congress or something, like or they can't get something passed because Joe Manchin or Christian Cinema opens their mouth about something and starts complaining. It's like, no, I need you to like start laying down the hammer. If they're in the way, do things to get them out of the way. Like don't bend to their will and like, oh well, the bill died because they didn't agree with it and that's just how politics works. No. Because on the opposite side, the Republicans, if you get in the way of something that they want to get done, they will get rid of you. You will be gone. If it's they don't care if it's your age or what. And I think it's because Republicans are scared of their base. Meanwhile, Democrats are like they're not scared and they rather antagonize and chastise us all the time to like get behind them and do what they want them to do what they want us to do. And it's ridiculous. Like we need to start getting concessions from these politicians. Like I know I sent a couple emails out when the AOC vote was happening, being like, "Hey, you're my representative. I want you to vote for AOC." Like that's an important job. She's a very vocal person, upfront, um, a household name at this point, whether it's good or bad. And you can't even like y'all are too stuck in your ways and like, oh no, we're gonna do this, and he's gonna be the best person to fight Trump. He's gonna miss most of the time there, and sorry to say it, he could even die. And we've learned our lesson there before, like with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Dianne Feinstein. Like you let them sit in there too long.
And
uh
we're doing it again, which is the sad part.
right, it's insanity now, like doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result. It doesn't
Sotomayor
work.
won't step down, and she knows she's at the age to step down. And so, what's going to end up happening is the same thing that happened with Ruth.
Yeah, and even like Joe Biden recently like knew he was out of his prime and couldn't step down, and then we found out all that stuff about like everybody internally knew and kept it from him. Like he was walled off and only got shown like the good stuff, and it
Yep,
like
it is sad because I feel like I don't know that Kamala would have been the best choice, but I think that we should have been able to have a primary, and we should
yeah,
have been able to pick between who we the people thought was the best choice.
yeah,
Um, and so I think that it sucks because there probably would have been a candidate that would have been more invigorating than Kamala was, which I will say, going back to the point of like having younger candidates, I think I was just proud to see that they weren't going to push somebody that was Biden's age. Kamala
yeah,
is, for all the issues that I have with her, she's young, she's youthful. She reminds me of some of my aunties. So I could see her being president and being able to last 2 terms without a huge cognitive decline. So I will say that was one benefit, but I think that they should have told Biden and just said, "Hey, we're not going to support you. you're going to step down, whether you want to or not. We're going to tell you to step down. And so I think
Right.
that that should have been the situation there.
Right. Like they waited till after that horrible debate. Meanwhile, like people were already saying stuff was wrong with him way before. Like I think it was January. People were saying like you're too old, dude. Even when he first said he was gonna run again, I automatically was like, no, you said you were gonna be transitional. You said you were going to leave. Like after this one term, you said you were going to leave. Instead, you're here still running and saying, "Oh, I can do the job." No, you can't, dude. Like we could see it. You fell off a bike. You had press conferences where you just were lost. Like no. And then like it wasn't until the the debate happened that you had like all these people and donors, and it took the donors to say this. Like that's ridiculous. It took donors pulling money away for him to step down instead of listening to actual voters that were saying like, "Hey, dude, no." And you had the blue MAGA people who were like, "Why are you ageist and don't want him?" No, I don't want. I'm sorry. I may be the only one, and if it's if it's being ableist, I'll be that. But I don't want my senile, dementiated. I don't want anybody that's senile and dementiated to be president of the United States. I don't want you. I don't want you nowhere near the Oval Office. Let it go. Like then picking Kamala, I was like, I mean, it was probably gonna happen, but I wish, like you said, I do wish it was an open primary. Um, and I think there was one person who ran, but he was like a random person that it was like, I don't know who you are, dude. But they should have like he should have stepped out, left earlier on, had the primary, and we could have went through it. And like, let Kamala go up there. Like, yeah, let her go up there. Would I have supported her? No, I would not have supported Kamala Harris. Um, sad to say, I would not have supported her. Hell, even after it was her, like I was, you remember, I was excited and hyped in the beginning because I was like, oh, boom, she could be her own person, do all this stuff. But as we found out in all the post-mortems that happened, she and her team did not want to do that. They didn't want to make her own person. They were like, "Oh, we need her to be just Joe Biden and younger." While all of us were saying like, "No, that's not what we want. We don't want you to be anything like Joe Biden. We don't like him for a reason, for a number of issues that are going on." I know for me personally, I didn't like the way he was handling Gaza. I didn't like how he was like rolling over for Republicans constantly. And I didn't like how he was like half-assing some of like the labor stuff, the labor bills that he was putting out. Like I feel like he could have went further. And also felt like a lot of stuff they were doing was like slow. Like I felt like they could have did a lot more and got a lot more accomplished, but instead, like they focus on one thing at a time. And from what we're finding out, it's literally because Joe Biden could not make it through meetings. And no matter what they were pushing out and lying about, it was like, y'all are insane for doing this. You all should be like, I don't know, arrested for this stuff. Like, this is insane. It's like weekend
Yeah,
at Bernie's
it's low
wheeling
key
around an old
elder
man.
abuse, but
Right.
like I feel like it's also like
And Jill's
my thing
responsible
is.
too.
Yeah, low key. Like I feel like at that age where it's like, how old is Joe? Like 82 or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you don't even have to live to see the consequences. Not wishing anything bad on anybody, but like you're not going to live to see the consequences of the actions that you hold. So why not just do things that, add a couple Supreme Court justices, do these things that like people have been trying to do for years, because it's not like, okay, you get a little bit of backlash. Like you're rich and white. You're going to live the rest of your life on a golf course somewhere or in Delaware or whatever you do. So it's not like you're going to get a bunch of like pushback. Why not do some of the more progressive things that people have been asking for that would truly help out the American people? Because it's not like you're running for reelection. Like once Kamala was the front runner for the party, you should have been doing all types of things to win over votes and to just help over or help the American people in general. So I think that it was a waste of time for him, quite frankly, these last few months. I think that there was a lot more that he should have and could have done that would have been really helpful, that really wouldn't have mattered to him, because it's like, okay, so what? Dismantle these systems. I don't have to run for reelection anyway, and it helps the American people. So I think it really sucks that he didn't at least benefit others in the midst of his kind of lame duck presidency.
Right, and they keep talking about like his legacy, his legacy, his legacy. Dude, you crushed it. You what legacy? I'm not gonna remember. Like I told you the other day, like of my shit list of presidents, he's close to the top of the most hated like presidents I do not like. Cause like even like now, he stepped down Kamala laws. He automatically checked out, not helping with anything, not going to do anything, not push anything, would randomly do stuff. Uh, and somehow with some stuff he's acting in retaliation to backlash, like how he pardoned Hunter and got so much heat for it that the next week, then he decided to go pardon people on death row and federal crimes and reduce sentences. Reduce, my bad. Everybody did not get pardoned. A lot of them just got their sentences reduced. What the fuck? But we have to realize this is the man who created the crime bill itself. So we can only expect but so much from him. I don't know where in his dementia he is. I don't know if he's like in the 90s or moving further back, but it's sick like to see. Like on top of the Supreme Court literally gave you a ruling that said you can do whatever you want. As president, you can do whatever you want and nobody can touch you
No
for it because
consequences.
right, no consequences. My first thing would have been I'm eliminating student loans. Gone. Poof, bow, gone. I'm clearing that. I would have did that months
That would
ago.
have
That would
won the
help.
Democratic Party
Yeah,
by a landslide.
they would have won so many elections. I would have did that.
It
Uh,
would have been a true
right.
blue wave.
I would have gotten real. I would if I can do whatever I want. Let's get real crazy. Credit card debt cancellation. Boom, gone. I don't want to see it anymore. Gone. But instead, like he did the stuff that he only wanted to do. Like he forgave all the debt of Ukraine, and it was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I understand you're trying to do a good thing, and like help them out, but bro, read the room. There are people like struggling right now and can't get ahead, and instead of like going after that, helping those people, you're doing like, oh no, for this country that I care so much about because I care so much this problem because I've had a beef with Russia forever. I'm gonna pardon their debt so they can keep fighting. Dude, like, come on. Like you could have did a lot more for people. Even still, like he's still what president for a couple more weeks. It's like I would be doing like a next student loan. I'm going to go ham for student loan but instead, like it got reported the other day, he backed off of it, and it's like, dude, you. That's why people voted for you, and then like it would help Kamala out so much and gave her something to run on because what she was running on was insane. And whoever is in charge of that team, like those strategists, all of them need to be fired. I don't from now on, I don't want to see a Biden, Harris, Obama, a Clinton. I don't want to see any of those advisors nowhere near any type of important campaign for Democratic Party because they've done nothing but cause loss after loss after loss. And people were saying like, oh, if they didn't elect Hillary Clinton, you thought they were going to elect Kamala Harris. And I get that. I understand that. That is valid. But there was so much momentum around Kamala Harris that she squandered. Her and her team just destroyed it because she wanted to run a campaign on vibes. She went to the Teamsters and told them, "Oh, I'm only going to answer 3 questions." And then when they went to 4 questions, her assistant slid Sean O'Brien, I think his name's Sean O'Brien, a letter saying this is going to be the last question. And at the end of her like answering that question, she said, "I'm going to win this with or without you." Who the hell are you to go and tell voters that? Are you insane? Do you have any type of people skills? Like, what's wrong with you? You don't say that to people. That's crazy. And you thought you were gonna win? No. Like the stuff that's coming out, it's crazy. And that we'll save that for like another episode and go through all that the stuff that we're finding out now, where it's like, wow, this thing was doomed from the jump. And people were like, oh, she only had 100 something days. No, she was already on the campaign trail because Joe Biden was already running for election. They were already doing events. All she did was get the reins. And instead of like moving the ship in the right direction that she wanted to, she was like, nah, we're going to keep everything the same as Joe Biden because that's what people want, even though every poll showed that's not what people wanted.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. I think that they're, because of the system in which politicians are funded, I feel like there's never going to be a politician that truly represents what we want because the only people that have the money to not give a fuck are people that are extremely wealthy, and those people don't have the interest of the common man anyway. So there's never
Mm-hmm.
going to be in like AOC for president because he still has to get money from mega donors, which if I'm not, if I'm correct, she actually doesn't take money from these like large super PACs, which I really respect. Neither does Bernie, from my understanding.
A
But
saint.
there's never going to be like just a like AOC that is able to, I guess, like run a campaign that I guess on the mainstream that doesn't accept like super PAC money, but also has enough money to fund itself. So like even if let's say had like I guess who would be like a liberal version of Donald Trump? Like let's say like I don't know, Zuckerberg ran for office.
you know who would be the liberal
Zuckerberg
version?
is who?
Ga- Gavin Newsom,
But I
gruesome
don't think
Newsom.
Gavin, he's not like a billionaire though. Like I mean, like he has enough money, but like he doesn't have like billionaire money is what I'm saying. Like
There,
I feel like when you're like
oh,
I guess
billionaire
Bloomberg
wise,
was the closest to what we had. Like Bloomberg was like a billionaire, but like he's not ever going to have the I feel like the common man in his I guess platform or campaign. Like Bernie grew up in New York. He was working class. To some extent, he is pretty working class still. I think he still lives in his like $300,000 home, which in today's America is just an average home.
yeah, people
So
trying to freak
there's
out
never
about
going to
that.
be, yeah,
Like
yeah. So
it
like
was
I'm
like,
like,
dude, that's a regular house. Have you seen house prices? That's why people can
yeah.
afford houses now.
So I'm like, there's never going to be like a him or let's say, um, like an AOC that is able to like run a Kamala style campaign without the funding of these like super
Yeah,
PACs, which really sucks because it creates a conundrum basically where it's like, okay, the people that have the interest of the common man, they can't run without, the big donors that, want their initiatives ran first. But then the people that are rich enough to run without those big donors, they don't have the experience of, you know, everyday worker. It's like, you look at people like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has been rich, has always been rich. Him and Ketanji Brown, they're both Parkland graduates. Bezos' dad was a Yale professor and did some other stuff. He's always been pretty solidly upper middle class. And so you look at that and it's like, okay, he might have had the working class experience, but now he's exploiting the working class to get ahead. So I don't see it ever being a situation of, some normal AOC type person runs and just on the donations of like you and I, the little $20 or $30 that you and I would give. So that's the issue that I have, and I think that's going to be the biggest part or the biggest issue with um, kind of like the Democratic candidates or just candidates in general. But I do think that like the Democrats have done a little bit better of a job than the Republicans have because it's like if you look at the Republicans, you've got Donald Trump, obviously a billionaire. You've got the last person that ran was what Romney. Romney was a private equity executive. He actually helped found
yeah,
Bain PE, which is one of the largest private equity groups. Then you've had John McCain, who was rather wealthy. And then of course the Bush family, the oil
yeah.
money. So at least I will say the
Slim pickings.
Democratic Party is like the Democratic Party is attainable. Obama, he grew up, pretty middle class. He just worked his ass off. He went to, Columbia and did all of that stuff and worked his way up. And then, of course, Kamala, she grew up in a working class family. She went to, just regular schools and Howard. And so I feel like at least the Dems, I feel like with the exception of Hillary has always been rich, but like I feel like the Democrats represent the U.S. public a bit more than the billionaires or 100 millionaires of the
Yeah.
Republican Party.
And there are some there's a billionaire, I just thought about him, the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, JB Pritzker. He's a billionaire himself. Um and I will say on the Democratic side, like the billionaires that are more for the people are very slim and few. And Pritzker did a lot of good things for Illinois. Like I can't think of them on top of my head, but I remember seeing a lot of good stuff that he was doing for the people there. That was like you would think like as a billionaire, what are you doing? But I just think he had like the common sense of like, hey, people struggle and there's no benefit in everybody struggling, so he helps out people and does things to help out people and stuff like that, which is cool. But like the Republican side has a lot more billionaires that are like I don't care about what the general everyday person thinks. I care about my pockets. and the Democratic side like lacks that by a lot. Um, like there's like Oprah and all of them, but at the same time, it's like I thought that was insane. The event that they did with Oprah, it was like I did with all those celebrities. It was like you just got called elitist, and your first heel turn was to go full like Hollywood celebrities, the cream of the crop. Like what?
But you have to think though, a lot of the American public, and I hate to say it like this, is
I know what
ignorant
you're
on the
about to
policy issues. They would rather vote because, like, I remember at one point in the election, it was like whoever Taylor Swift decides, like, she announces is good, like that's going to be the
Yes,
president.
right. And
So
I
I
hate
feel
that
like a
so
lot
much.
of
Like, why are
people.
we so small brained in this country that I'm not going to insult people. Let me take that back. I'm not going to insult people, but I think it's ridiculous that you pick your vote based off a celebrity
People are,
that is rich
yeah,
and does
there's
not
just
care
too
about
many
you.
people influenced by celebrities. I won't say ignorant, but like I'll say celebrities wield way too much influence on the public, and that's the issue that I have. Like I could give a rat's ass what like Taylor Swift is voting for or who she's not voting for.
Right.
Who's going to be the best for the nation and the best for me personally? That's what I'm looking at. And so out of the two evils, I'm like, okay, well, I don't really love this candidate, but the obvious choice is this candidate. So
Right. It's just it's really ridiculous. Like I even saw like stuff floating around that the Dems apparently are floating around Dwayne the Rock Johnson for president, and I have a personal deep hatred for Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I think he's one of the WWE wise great
whoa,
person. Actor
whoa,
wise, he's one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life. And I will
whoa.
say that with my full chest. That is a horrible actor. No wonder everything he
That's
touched
sick.
falls apart. And he's a horrible co-actor because he'll go on set try to direct the director, and they wonder why they threw him out of Fast and the Furious. And you want this man to be
You're
president of the
wild.
United States? They gave this man a spinoff to get rid of him. And you think you want him as president of the United States? No, I don't want Dwayne The Rock Johnson being president of the United States. No, anybody else. Please, anybody else but him. And they're even like, floating Kamala again, which is like, that's already dead in the water. Don't even try it. We're not going there anymore.
I hate to say it, but I feel like there's no chance in a woman president winning for at least the next like 20 years. And it sucks because I feel like there are some very qualified women that could run. Like I would love to see AOC. They're gonna say Crockett is like an angry black woman, so that'll never happen. AOC, they're gonna call her a communist socialist, so that'll never happen. Gretchen
Which
Whitmer,
there is spin to that. There is that's the Democratic Party could have that dream if they just learned how to spin. Because if they're gonna call you a communist, you should say, "Oh, I didn't know communism was helping the everyday person, make sure people had food on their table, make sure that people had money in their wallets and could afford eggs, a house, their power bills, raise a family. I didn't know that was communism." Like those type of spins right there, they don't do. And when it gets like thrown at them, they buckle and shift and run away from it. That like they
but you
did
have
with
to
Bernie.
remember though, like the only group or like people like, and it goes back to like Americans are just kind of uninformed, and it kind of goes into that topic of like Elon and Vivek versus everybody on the right now. It's like Americans are reasonably uninformed, and it's not just like willing ignorance in some cases. Like I feel like the U.S. education system fails in a lot of ways. Like I was lucky to like grow up in Virginia. Like we're ranked like what second in public education. So between like the private school education and then like the Virginia public school education I got, it was like basically like all AP classes. So I got to
Mm.
understand like, okay, communism is never been fully tried, which I wouldn't want to live like under like a true communist society anyway. But like most Americans, like I feel like, don't even get like the gist of like, okay, what aspects of communism made it bad? What aspects of communism are already implemented in the United States? Like, if we really look at it, the largest, or second largest, I rather, government program in the nation is technically a socialist program, the VA. But like
Yeah.
nobody's like defund the VA. Well, actually, let me take that back. I don't know what Doge
Well,
is about
right
to do.
now,
So yeah, but like the average American is not like, please take benefits away from like military veterans. But like nobody thinks of that as like a socialist, thing. Free healthcare to me and like, loans at 0%, that sounds like government handouts, right? But like nobody thinks of it that way. They think of it like, oh, these people served for the country, which they did. But the average American, they hear communism and they think like the worst possible things, which I think the US has done like a great job in propaganda in kind of, making
Oh
it
yeah,
seem like, this is like the worst possible thing. But like I talk to like people about this all the time. I feel like China is more capitalist than the US in a lot of ways. And
oh
nobody
yeah,
wants to hear that. But like if you look at it, capital like they have like a hyper capitalism. Like you can look at like, and I'm probably gonna get banned from China for saying this, but like you look at like there's these things called like the tofu dreg buildings, and it's like people are doing like the bare minimum, building these huge skyscrapers and bridges, and they're literally like falling over because it's like, oh, we want to make a profit, so we're not gonna like actually build this code. We're gonna like cut corners anywhere we can. Or like years ago, there was like that huge like baby formula scandal that killed like 500,000 like infants because they had put like some type of poison in the baby formula just to save money. So like there's a lot of things that are hyper capitalist. Like if we were true capitalists, the FDA, and I hope I'm not giving any ideas to like Doge, but like the FDA would not exist. And we're kind of seeing that to some extent now, where it's like every 2 weeks there's like a major food health scandal, like just within like the last 3 months. You got people like McDonald's is killing people, Boar's Head had to shut down their plant in Virginia. It's like every couple of weeks it's like a food safety scandal. And so I feel like we might get to that point where it's like, hyper capitalism. But like I feel like Americans in general are just very fearful of the word, communism. And I think that that's due to the American education, but I feel like that kind of goes into the whole like right versus Elon and Vivek, and now how the people that thought they were so America first are realizing they are SpaceX, PayPal,
right,
Tesla, the boring company first, as opposed to American first. Which my first thoughts are Elon's an immigrant. he
right,
he owes this country nothing. So why are you shocked that an immigrant billionaire cares more about himself than about, people in the local Texas economy or Sarasota economy that work at his companies?
right. Like those things. It's so crazy how they just thought like, oh yeah, and for them to say we're anti-establishment, we don't like wealthy billionaires, but be right behind Elon Musk and love him and all that stuff. They like now they're starting to see like the rug getting pulled, and like they're complaining and like what was it, Laura Loomer was attacking him and all that stuff. Me personally, I don't see a problem with the H-1B visas. Like I think they're good. Like I don't have a problem with immigration at all. Like if you ask me, I think immigration is a good thing. It brings in like more people and helps like diversify our population in general. And they are big help to the economy. Like they do more good for the economy than harm. Because you end up with situations where like Poland's trying to kick out all its immigrants, and then what happens with Poland is Poland will start to fall apart because for one, when there's nobody to blame, they start to just blame each other, and then there's more infighting. But also having a more diverse population, and I may sound crazy, but having a diverse population helps with your society's health in general. And things like that, like societies that have not been exposed to other societies or other peoples, health wise is not a good thing because a lot of health situations that happen, your people will never see it. And so then when like, if Poland does that and say like an outbreak happens and then like, everybody else is used to it because of being around different people from different groups, your group is not. And so boom, it's like the Sentinel Island who've never come in contact with people. Then the first time they
Which,
come
to
in
be
contact,
fair,
sick.
though, they need to leave them people alone on Sentinel Island. All
Yes.
the missionaries and stuff that keep going over there, they need to leave them
It's like
people alone
it's like what's
because at
wrong with
this
y'all?
point, they are not prepared to deal with modern human illnesses and stuff. So to try and contact them at this point would be subjecting them to dangerous viruses and stuff that could potentially kill them. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. That would be basically a genocide if you went there and coughed one time. Like you need to go meet the Hague. You need
I
to meet
think
the
that
blender.
actually that did happen. Like they took two of
Yeah.
the elders to like India, and it just random tangent. Like they came back and like they both died like within
Yeah.
like days. So like then like they realized like the Sentinelese people are like now like yeah, all people that try to contact us are like devils. But like I
Yeah.
get that. I like the idea of the H-1B visa, especially working in tech. I
Mhm.
think there's pros and cons to it. Like,
Oh
of
yeah.
course,
There are
I
definitely
think that we
cons.
should we should definitely hire American when we can because there is a lot of great American talent that doesn't get like the shine that it does, because like I've done recruiting for these like big financial firms or like big tech firms, and it's like most of these major companies, whether you think of like, I'll say tech is a bit more lenient about it. Like tech will at least try to go to, like different schools that aren't like the T20. But like if you're in finance and you're at like a company like McKinsey or like Goldman Sachs, they're going to the T20 schools or whatnot. So basically like your Ivy Leagues, John Hopkins,
Mm,
Stanford is one of them, Georgetown, etc., Wake Forest, UVA. And so you're getting the same talent pool as opposed to, going to like even like some state schools. Like we had a DEI hire. Funny enough, he was a white man that went to a state school that was like a top 40 state school. Like think like a Virginia Tech or like a UNC, like a very good school. Like, but it wasn't like a Ivy League T20 school. And we consider him a DEI hire because he was a white man that went to a state school. So I feel like that we should definitely like try to hire Americans because there is a lot of great talent outside
hmm
of like the T20 schools that like kids that just don't ever get a chance, because it's like, yeah, like, I have like I have the GPA and the grades to go to a Georgetown or to a Columbia or George, like these great schools. But do I want to spend 80 to $90,000 a year and be in that much student loan debt when I could go to this state school that is offering me a free ride because of my SAT and my GPA, but those kids
Right.
don't get the same opportunities. And so I think that it is disheartening to like see people like they come over and it's like, okay, you already have like and not everybody, but like you already have like a leg up because it's like, okay, your parents were able to pay for UPenn out of pocket and drop the 94,000 or whatever it is now a year for you to go here, and then you automatically like, get a job over an American. I get that aspect of it, but I also think that there's some like exploitative sides of things. So like when
Yeah.
Elon Musk took over X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, the only people that stayed, like, of course, like he laid off a bunch of people. Like, I remember that because I got laid off during that same time. Like, every big tech company was just like, fuck you guys. So I
Yeah.
got laid off, and everybody I knew got laid off that was working in tech. And so everybody at Twitter that were like basically Americans, they were either like laid off or they were given the opportunity to be like, yo, if you don't want to work under, like, I forgot what he called them, but he was like, there's going to be major changes. Like, Twitter was known for being like a great work life balance, whereas like you go in at 9, you may take like an hour lunch, and then you're like at home by like 4 o'clock for happy hour. But then Elon was like, no, you guys are gonna work like nights and stuff. And so like people were like sleeping in the office. He like removed all the like work from home stuff and hybrid
hmm
work, and the only people that were willing to stay were like H-1B visa people, because it's like they literally had no choice. They were like, would you rather like, and it sucks to say like this, but it was very exploitative. Like, do you want to stay in America or do you want to go back to your home country where there isn't these opportunities, or you may have family that you're supporting with your $200,000 entry level salary at Twitter, etc. And so
Right.
yeah, I think that it's very exploitative and there needs to be some overhaul in that aspect, but I feel like no politician's going to touch that just because of the optics of like, well, you're advocating for, foreign workers, but not American workers. Whereas we should be looking at it as like, hey,
Workers in
all workers
general.
should just
Yeah.
get rights. So it's a very touchy topic, because it's like one part of me is like, yeah, bring in the best talent from anywhere. But the other part of it is like, we should also help Americans. And so I don't know, like it's a very touchy
Yeah.
subject, I feel like.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the exploitative thing there is very prevalent. Elon's known for like exploiting that labor of those H-1B visa people by knowing like, oh, you're not going to want to leave here. So what's going to happen is I'm going to underpay you and overwork you, and you're going to do all the work. And he went on Twitter and tried to be like no, Vivek was like, oh, basically called white America's mediocre, which I thought was insane. That Vivek said call basically call said to white
Did he
people what
lie
white
though?
people say to black people. And there I would say like there are some hardworking white people, but for him to outright say that like straight across the board, like boom, hey, you he like talk to them the way a lot of racist white people will talk about black people. And
Yep.
even a lot of people from other races will talk about black people. It's insane. It's crazy to hear it come from somebody else. And the reaction from it was how was not. I would. it was hilarious because it was like they're losing their shit right now because they're
Yep.
hearing this for the first time. They're basically Vivek basically called them DEI hires and was
Yep.
like, "You're
Black
only there
jobs, and now
because
we got Indian
yeah."
jobs.
And it's so crazy. And there are some issues too with like different minorities. Um, and I say this all the time. There are different minorities that talk shit about black people and try to do things to like lowball black people or not lowball, but like, you know, lower us and our appeal and all that stuff and trees like shit because they think that they're gonna be accepted by white people more, not realizing that white people do not like you if not just as much, if not more. Like with when it comes to black people, I firmly believe it's like white people have gotten to the point of being able to deal with black people. They may have their spouse, but at the end of the day, they will look at other races outside of black people and be like, absolutely not. This
I
one
don't
here,
know though.
like there, and it's not a fully across the board, but there are some cases where it's like I've been in like situations where there was like there was a person from another minority group, and I would like it was a friend of mine that was white. And the person of a different race left the room, and that white person started talking mad shit about like them, their race, their people. And I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, what the fuck just came out of your mouth? That's insane. Like for you to sit there and say that they adore you. They always want to, you know, now this person from another race did treat me like shit, but but they always try to one up me and all that stuff, even in like class, try to like, you know, shit like that. But like this white person here does not treat you at like they don't care about you like at all. They're talking shit about you to me. I'm just here like, yo, that's so crazy. And I've seen it with like professors too who've done this before. Like when I went was in the middle college, I've seen this with professors where they were like called them kiss asses. And it's like, yo, that's
But I feel like
so
it's also like
crazy.
classism, though. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like that white people have always been threatened by not being number one as far as like class goes. And if you look at it, immigrants across the board do really well, whether it's like Nigerians or East Asians, South Asians,
yeah,
etc. People that come to this country bust their ass and like try to make the most of it. But then on top of it, like if you look at it just from a demographic standpoint, like the highest earning group in America are Indian Americans. And so I think that,
I would even
and I
expand
think
it
that
to like
that boils,
Asian, like just Asian Americans in general, like from that
well, yeah,
continent,
that's true. But like the two highest
excel.
groups are Indian Americans and then
Mhm.
East Asian immigrants as well. And so like I think like the average in like I'll have to fact check this, but like the average Indian American salary is like 150,000. And let's see. Okay, so yeah, the median household for Indian Americans from Pew Research Center is 145,000, and that was in 2022. They're outpacing every other group. The second highest group is Taiwanese, the next highest is Filipino, Chinese, Japanese, Pakistani, etc. So if you look all the way down, like they're outpacing like the average median income is almost double for Indians than they are for like the average like family or whatnot. So I think that that's a
Mhm.
fear of a lot of white people, regardless of race. It's like, oh, you're doing better than me. Like that's, and I think that that comes in the mindset of things like black jobs and like when comments like that are
Yeah,
made, where it's like when I look around, I'm like everybody that I know that's has a black job, we're all working in corporate or we're entrepreneurs or we're doing this and that. So I don't know what you mean by black jobs, but it's not the insult that you're thinking it is. So I feel like
yeah,
that a lot of white Americans are threatened by high earning minorities, regardless of race. But I think it's even more so, like, even more so of an insult when it's like, at least, like, they can say, like, okay, black people are still statistically down for a lot of reasons. I can get into that because I think sometimes we need to stop complaining and actually just like pull ourselves up. But that's a whole nother issue. But like, I feel like with Indian Americans, they haven't faced a lot of the systemic shit because it's like, okay, when the largest group of like Indian Americans came over, there was no like Jim Crow. There was no like, you can't buy a neighbor, like buy a house in this neighborhood. It was more
yeah,
so, oh, you have the money, you can buy a house in this neighborhood. And so like, I was in Ashburn, Virginia earlier, which Ashburn is like in Loudoun County, richest county in America for everybody, regardless of race. And it's a mix of everybody. It really is. But like, I was driving through Brambleton. Brambleton is like one of the like this huge master plan community. I went to go see one of my friends, and so you look out, and it's like a ton of Indian American people. They are some of the like highest earning people, and it's because
Mhm.
like they haven't had a lot of the like white people have not been able to use the systemic racism in the bullshit that they did to keep like black people and Hispanic people down because they like a large chunk of Indian Americans came over rather recently, like after a lot of that had ended. And so not only are they hard workers and they're making good money, they are able to afford the same neighborhoods that a lot of white people tried to keep black and Hispanic people out of. And there was nothing that they could do about that. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's like the big thing there that like nobody ever thinks about. It's like, so I don't know. It's really interesting, but I think that it's impossible for tech to exist in its current state without foreign workers, or immigrants, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think like a big part of that, like to if Americans are serious about wanting to fix that issue, you're going to have to fund education and make education college wise more affordable. But that is one hill they would rather not cross over. They want to make education look like it's the problem and have like these charter schools and things like that to control like other aspects, not realizing you're going to hinder a lot of people where it's like you're going to be like, why don't we have more people like this in this field? Well, because you iced a lot of people out and you priced a lot of people out, iced them out and didn't let them in. And so now you're wondering why are we having to, like with the H1B visa stuff being like, why are we hiring so many foreign workers? Well, because they can do that stuff now. You didn't take it seriously and nobody else did. You didn't think it was important to fund, and so you don't have that stuff. And there are some like aspects too where it's like, um, we would have like there's like they'll be like, oh, there's not much innovation in America. Well, because Americans live in a point right now where you have to work to live. You have to work to like survive. Meanwhile, in those other countries, like they give them programs and help them out in certain ways. I don't know really much with India. I know India has a caste system. There's a lot of issues there, and there are a lot of other issues with Modi and stuff like that. But I do know in like China and stuff like that, like there are other programs and other things that students do that like lead to more innovation and more opportunities, stuff like that. Like Americans just like, you can't innovate if you have to work to put food on the table, and by the time you're done like coming home from work, you eat, you go to sleep just to go back and start all over again. Like we need, if they're really serious about this, like there needs to be more funding for, especially for those arts programs, because a lot of those arts programs and STEM programs lead to that. Like that innovation helps and stuff like that. Like it may, you may, like some people be like, oh, why are we fund these art programs in schools? Well, because they lead to like other important things. Like they help out with other important things. I mean, in my opinion, they make people more sociable and likable by having those arts, but it also leads to innovations. Like you could have somebody who does that, who's like an artist that leads to some new technology that helps in painting and making paintings and restoring paintings and stuff like that. But instead, you're like, oh, it's not important. Let's not fund it, which is ridiculous. Um, there was another point I thought about in my head too that I can't remember right now. But yeah, like the abuse of those H1B workers is ridiculous, and that's the only reason why they're advocating for it, because a lot of the workers that they have are those workers, and they refuse to, like, oh, I don't want to send them back, but at the same time I can pay them cheaper. I don't want to I don't want to end what I'm having here and have to start from scratch all over again. And there have been times where in like with the Haitians eating dogs and cats bullshit that had happened there, the factory manager, I forgot whoever he was saying straight up, like, these Haitian workers come in, they work, they do their job, and they go home. They do not complain. There's no problems. There's like nothing here. Like they don't. There's no problem. These are good people. They're hardworking people. And demonizing them was not good at all. And doing all like the eating cats and dogs stuff, just to find out that wasn't happening at all. And they tried to say that one man who was carrying the geese was going to kill the geese, but he was a wildlife preservist working for a company that was like preserving like animals and stuff like that. But those are hard working people. They're everyday people, and I think they need to, like, as Americans, we need to go from looking at it in a way of uh classist and racism. um and if Americans are serious about wanting to make more stuff for America, better, wanting a better country, if these Republicans and conservatives want a better country, that also means you're going to have to give other people opportunities here in this country that are already here, and in funding things and helping people out and stuff like that. It needs to go from inner fighting to a clash consciousness of, like, everybody can have their piece of the pie, and have their daily needs met if we just work together, instead of like fighting each other over stupid stuff that they throw at us to distract us from, like, getting having a better life and being able to survive. And I've like currently I feel like a lot of people are being, like, pushed to their point, um and stuff like that. And that kind of leads into the next topic about, like, Luigi Mangione and all the stuff there. Uh I'm not gonna say too much on there because I don't want to end up on a watch list, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably on the NYPD watch list because I did like a lot of those memes and tweets that were out there. But like, I really believe, like, a lot of people are being more aware. Like, healthcare is one issue that people, insurance in general is one issue that people, no matter who you are, agree on that there's problems there in general. Like me, if you ask me personally, I do not believe health insurance should be a for-profit thing. Like, I think it's actually disgusting when they say we had record-breaking profits this year, but also having a high denial rate. Like, what do you mean you had record-breaking profits? Why are you profiting off of people suffering and pain and stuff like that? And I know it has to be paid for, but I also believe, like, hey, you deny a cancer patient treatment because you don't think it's necessary. That's evil. That's sick. That's disgusting. um and like, you over here bragging about profits and stuff like that, like, no, I'm no. And a lot of the, like, news organizations, and you could see them, like, in a row, and even some politicians, like, you could see, like, oh, we know who's behind this and why you're saying this stuff, or trying to be like, oh no, you guys shouldn't be mad at them, you should be mad at the healthcare and CEOs, like, oh, I've been denied too, but I'm not mad about. No, the people are upset and angry. Like, people are fed up across the board. No matter what you say, they're not going to bend. You're not going to be able to beat people into submission on this one. You're not going to be able to legislate this. Like, that's going to be unpopular legislation. People have a genuine problem with healthcare, and Luigi had his situation and put matters in his own hand. I will neither confirm nor deny if I agree with that. But and people were trying to be like, oh, the Brian Thompson, oh, he had a family, but he had a family. Okay, so did Adolf Hitler. You wouldn't be saying this about Adolf Hitler. I don't think anybody's gonna say this about Adolf Hitler. Like, oh, he had a family. Okay, so did Jeffrey Dahmer have a family?
Here's my
It
thing.
wasn't a wife and kids,
Just
but he had, like, parents that cared about him and stuff like that. Like, the whole, but they had a family thing is like, that's BS. It doesn't matter.
like I feel like, yes, it sucks that someone had to die. Like, I would hate that if my father was brutally murdered in Midtown.
Yeah,
But I feel like if my father was complicit in the deaths of God knows how many people through shitty software. So, a little bit of insight on this. I am actually a product manager at a healthcare fintech company. So,
oh
I
lord,
have a little bit of insight into this. And as a product manager, if I were to release a shitty software that was shown to have like a 90% failure rate, I would be fired. Going back to, being the only black guy in the office. So, like, I can't imagine not only showing this failure of a software to my boss, but then my boss saying, let's go with it. It sounds great. So, like, one part of me is like, that really sucks for his kids, his wife. They probably loved him, whoever else, extended family, yada, yada.
yeah,
But how many people also had their father die because of this shitty software that you signed off
exactly.
on so that you could have a few more stakeholder or a few more stockholder engagements at your next quarterly meeting. So, like, I hate to say this because I don't, I'm not like a cruel person, but like, do I care? In the words of Wendy Williams, do we care? That's how I feel about it. So it's like, I'm not trying to be like cruel. I hope that doesn't sound mean, but it's like if you're
Right.
like I don't know if you've ever watched Dexter, but it's like
Yeah.
Dexter is a sociopath that goes around murdering serial killers.
Hmm.
It's like, am I supposed to feel bad for the
Do
serial
I feel
killer because
right? Do I feel bad for
so
them?
so that's kind of how I feel about the situation. It's like, okay, yes, this is sad, that sucks. I'm more impressed by the fact that, because I used to work in Midtown Manhattan, so I'm like, one, impressed by how he got away with this. Two, I'm like, whoa. But three, I also feel like CEOs should also be more. Let me also preface this: like, I'm not advocating for anybody to do the actions that he did, but I
Same.
feel like at the same point, like if you've seen that horrible crash of like that Jetstar airplane in South Korea, and
Yeah.
it's like you can see like the CEOs, they were like bowing and they were like asking for the public's forgiveness. Whole time, like that wasn't their fault. You
Right.
could blame Boeing, you could
That
blame
is
the pilots on board, you could blame the
Boeing.
weather, you could blame all of these different things, but they took it as their own personal failure because they represent that company. I feel like we need to get CEOs to like that point. Not hopefully not through violence, but like, is
Yeah.
there a sense where it's like we like, because that software like that should not have ever passed the bar. And I
Right.
don't know, like my thing is like shit, like what's the bar of entry to like be a like product manager at United Healthcare? Because I'm about to send out some like applications. If I can, pass off shitty software, I need to be looking for a new job. And they probably pay good as shit. So I'm like, and I know they have an opening, not trying to be funny. So I'm like, bro, like, if this is the bar of what we're passing off as software, that's insane to me. So it's like, why brag about like the people's lives that you are ruining, the people's lives that are like the families that may be impacted by their loved ones dying? Like, I have had like a very profound death in my family that's really fucked me up for the last few months. And I'm like, I would feel pissed if that person's healthcare was like, well, actually, we're not going to pay for chemo. And that's happened to people. There was a guy talking about like the doctors recommended 35 treatments of chemo, and UHC was like, we'll only do 27. So I'm like,
Right.
as much as I feel for the kids, like they're like 12 and 14 or whatnot, like I think those are pivotal years to have your father. I also feel for how many other people don't have their fathers because of
Exactly.
actions that this man signed off on, knew about, and approved. So I don't know. I think that we need to get to a point where it's like the CEOs in America should be more similar to like the CEOs of Jetstar Airways. I've never heard of Jetstar. I probably will never fly them because I typically only fly Western Airlines. But like to see that they care that much, I might actually give them like a shot because it's like, okay, you guys clearly care about the 54 lives that were lost on that flight. You guys
Yeah.
clearly care about like the families. Like, or at least you made it look like you cared. Like you didn't brag, like,
Right.
we can write off this plane at least, yada yada. Like, no,
Right.
you actually took some level of empathy and human decency to be like, hey, even though this was out of our control, we weren't the pilots, we weren't the weather, we weren't even Boeing, we at
Right.
least acknowledge that you guys, your families, the injuries that were sustained on this plane are going to be lifelong. The family members that have been life lost are going to be like lifelong, and so I really respect
Right.
that from them. So, and I think that that's how every CEO should be, and I feel like. Especially in healthcare, which is such a touchy subject in America, I feel like that's not like you don't brag about these sort of things. And
Right.
I think that it's just really it's sick, and to me, like I'm not gonna say I don't care about a human life because like I do, but at the end of the day, it's very Dexter-ish or like
Yeah.
Jigsaw. It's
It's
like,
like
can I feel?
one dead CEO out of
Yeah,
how many
like,
people has he killed? How many people put? How much blood is on his hands from the
I
stuff
think
that
that
he
actually
approved and the
was
software
like
he approved?
wasn't that like the premise of Jigsaw 4, where it was like that doctor, she was doing like shady shit, and so
Yeah.
he was like, I'm gonna take you, and you're gonna heal me, or you're gonna die." Like that,
Yeah.
it's very like like this is like it would be interesting to be in a philosophy class right now, but it's like, who do you like?
Right.
Who do you put the culpability on? Do you blame, a disgruntled person that has likely had, horrible run-ins with this healthcare company where the CEO openly doesn't give a fuck about the people he's insuring? Or do you care about like the wife and kids? Like I feel like both are equally suck. Like I think that it sucks, but
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have, major sympathies for one or the other, quite
Yeah.
frankly. So
And
I don't know. It's just really weird.
currently, we don't know if Luigi did it or not. We don't
This is
know.
all alleged. Yeah,
We
let
don't
me
know.
preface
This
that.
is alleged. We don't know if it was Luigi or not. Me, if you ask me, that's not Luigi. What murder? He wasn't a murderer. What do you mean? He just happened to be a guy, not following BDS. That, yeah, but you know, just at McDonald's eating a burger, and somebody just misattributed to him, like
And
and
quiet as it's kept, Daniel Penny got off. So,
right.
and Daniel
It
Penny
was
is not
so
as loved
weird.
as Luigi
Oh,
is.
right. Like that was so weird to see Fox. Like I watched Hassan on Twitch, and he was showing like Fox News on one side attacking the person who killed the CEO and all that stuff, and then turning 2 seconds later to praise Daniel Penny and he's an innocent person. What the? It's okay. Murder to these people, murder's okay if it's an everyday random poor person, but when you murder a CEO, we have to it cannot stand. And like all that stuff, like they're gonna, and I hope they never do this or get the idea, but it's like they're going to get to a point where they're going to make CEOs a protected class. And that's insane. Like the governor of New York being like, oh, we're making a hotline for CEOs if they feel in danger. You're sick in the head for doing this, and you're so out of touch and so brain dead that you don't understand that that's the worst idea to display in front of people that you're supposed to represent, everyday people you're supposed to represent, because there's no hotline for them.
But
Their
my thing
crimes
is
don't
like
get solved this
their
fast.
hotline and their protected class needs to be negotiated in their package. When you were talking about how much of a bonus you're gonna get, the sign on, all of that, you also need to factor in how much you need for security. That's my thing about it.
Right.
I that
Like that shouldn't be the
doesn't
people's
fall on
problem.
the New York PD because it's like if for example, New York rappers, if Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and 50 Cent, all of these people have to get their own security details, why the fuck are the taxpayers going to pay for random CEO of et cetera company?
Right. To have
Like
a
that's
hotline. What?
like, and my thing is, you're making what? The dude was making what, 14 million a year, which honestly is a bit low by CEO standards, which is kind of crazy. But like, you're making 14 million a year, which 200,000 for 2 to 3 security guards.
Probably barely paid
So
anything in taxes.
yeah, so I'm like, my personal safety is, a little bit more than $200,000 at that level. I will gladly pay for that or negotiate that into my package. Where if I ever get to that level, one, I wouldn't be screwing people over like that. But like, two, I would also be like, okay, I talk a lot of shit. Like, I get, a little
Right.
security package. Like, I've talked shit about billionaires my whole life, so um, I need
Right.
a little protection. So, like, I would negotiate that into whatever package that I'm
Right.
like dealing with. So, I think that it's, I don't know. It really, it's interesting, and I think that it's just like a weird moral dilemma because I'm like, no, I don't want to see like this mass spree of like CEO unalivings. I would much
Right.
rather than like have to face time in jail, not like club fed, but like actual jail.
Yeah.
So, or prison rather. But like on the same side of it, it's like people are fed up. And I think that people are getting to the like let them eat cake moment where it's like
Yeah, they learned nothing from the French Revolution.
we don't see like you got all these people and the
This is
same
why
thing's going
history.
on
This is why
everywhere in the
education
world.
funding is important.
Yeah, but that's one of the things they'll probably defund during, all of this, like, we can't teach history bullshit. But like it's like my thing is, for me at least, I don't I don't know. I think that people are finding it so hard to get ahead that this is unfortunately going to be the way that people lash out. Because it's like you like can make 150,000 in New York or in San Francisco and still be considered low income. Like it's really sad. Like I have friends that are in New York still and they're making like I know this for a fact, like 140, 150, and they still qualify for like the housing lottery. And so it's like, okay, if you're making 150,000, how is this sustainable for like the entry level teachers that are going to be making like 60,000? Like I like saw like an
Right.
advertisement for teachers in Northern Virginia earlier, and it was like starting at $58,000. That literally puts you under the poverty line in Northern Virginia because the average family income here is like 140, 150. So it's like how are you going to want to attract teachers where it's like, okay, your take home pay at $58,000 is what, like 4,000 a month? Average rent is 2,400 a month. People are starting to see like they're not going to get ahead. And so it's just like, I think that, like, and I feel like it's sad because like I don't want this to become a trend. I would rather, people just like become, better human beings and like be like, okay, hey, like I make good money. Like, why can't I give a little bit of this away and still live a very cushy life without exploiting people? But like, that's not the way that people think. And so you've
Right.
got like the rise of company towns like Elon Musk has got like a company town he's trying to build outside of Austin. We've seen that doesn't work. We've seen it with the coal. We've seen it with Henry Ford, and he took all them people to Brazil and built Fordlandia, and they uprose against him. We've seen it time and time again. These really, really rich people get to a point where it's like they like have
Greed.
so
Like
much that
I
they
own
they
everything
can't.
about your life to the point where you're gonna work for me and continue to work for me because I own
Yeah,
your housing, your paycheck, your food. I control it all, and you stay like we've done this before.
and that's
And
what's
literally every
sad.
time it happened, the shit even like back in like the industrial era, like we saw what happened. It led to so many financial crashes, so many horrible working conditions. Like labor unions came because of this, and like our country has worked real hard to eliminate labor unions, but those things help people be like not be abused in their workplaces and for
But
people.
to be fair,
Yeah,
though,
these
rich
CEOs.
people. Oh, my bad.
Oh, I was gonna say like these CEOs, like you can't push people and push people like Kroger's having like the stock market prices in their stores and rent like raising the price if too many people come in or buy too many of it. Like that stuff's evil. Like what is I've told you before, it's some fucking consultant that is getting paid to do this stupid
Not
shit.
too
They're
much
getting
on
paid
this.
big butts. Them, like that trash can in New York with Eric Adams presented that was small as hell. Like some consultant got paid a couple $1 million for that dumbass, evil ass idea. And like you can't continue to push people, push people, push people, and see how far can we go until like people pop. Like people are popping. People are like one missed payment away from poverty, they're like one accident away from poverty, and you're continuing to push, push, push. And then after, what was it? Recently, like a lot of those companies were saying, "Oh, like we weren't having issues, or there wasn't high theft in our stores. We just, we actually made record profits." Like you were complaining about thefts were
Walmart.
causing you in those, like yeah, complaining about theft causing you financial issues, but you had record breaking profits, and then a lot of you are lowering your prices, admitting, "Oh yeah, we did raise them during COVID because we just thought we could get more money."
And
Sick.
mind you, they're like the amount in theft that they faced. So I'll just put it like in simple terms. They like had like 120 like billion or something like that overall like revenue or whatnot. But if you look at it, they lost like 2 billion in like theft or whatnot, which is crazy when you think about it, like 2 billion or something. It was, I don't know like the exact numbers, but when it came out to it, like I did like the math, it would be like you or I losing like if we made like $100,000, it would be like you or I losing like $20. And it's like, do we really care about
Right.
that amount of money? Like, yeah, like nobody wants to lose money, but like 20
And don't
bucks
they
out of
get
a
like
hundred
a
thousand, is that like a huge deal? Like,
right? Don't they get like a tax? Like they get like money back
you
for that
can write
stuff,
it off,
like
yeah, like
insurance
because
or
it's
insurance or
technically a
something like that.
business loss, yeah.
Like
And the
you get
thing
money
about it,
back for that, and you're crying. What the hell's wrong with you?
my thing is, it's like it's sad because like I feel like the only like in the olden days, I don't even mean like olden days, but like in the 1900s, like you had really rich people, but like I feel like a lot of really rich people got off on like helping others. I feel like the only one that we see that does that now, or like that we have seen in recent times, was like what's her name, Mackenzie Bezos, where it's like,
Yeah,
okay, she
I
got
haven't
all
heard
of
of it.
this money and she gave it to HBCUs and gave it to this fund and that fund, and like you can see it like with like the like Carnegie family, like Andrew Carnegie. It's like what he did with his money. He's like, oh, I want my workers to be educated in the Pittsburgh area, so I'm going to open a bunch of libraries. I'm going to open one of the best colleges in the nation. The
Right.
Vanderbilts did the same thing. It's like you have
There's
all of this
philanthropy.
money. Yeah, like they got off on like, I
Still
couldn't
terrible
think
people,
real.
but there was
Yeah, like
philanthropy.
you can get the same
At least
thrill of
something.
having your name, like if you're really rich, having your
Right.
name on like the last like the last name of like a major school
Right.
like
They
John
would build
Harvard.
stuff. They would build like a building, a bridge, like
Yeah,
they a
yeah.
dam. Like they gave you that money.
Something
They were like, "I'm gonna give
useful.
you these fund these public projects that need to get done. I'm gonna fund these and have it named after me." The billionaires now don't do stupid. They don't do shit. They don't do shit like that. They're so fucking dumb. Like you wonder why people hate you. You don't give back. You refuse to give back. You
To be
cry about
fair
taxes.
though, there was a Trump University. Whether it was legit or
Dear,
not, there
dear
he did
God.
try.
R.I.P. to Trump University, man.
And quite frankly, I don't know if I want them building
A joke to
libraries
me.
or
No.
universities because
Mm-mm.
they wouldn't be actual institutes of higher education. They would
Donald
be
Trump, you don't have to
institutes of
do
indoctrination.
right. Donald Trump, you don't
So,
have to do any of that. You don't have to listen to us. You don't have to build a bridge or nothing. You don't got to build a library. You're excused. You don't no, you don't we're good. We're good. We somebody else can do this. But yeah, like there was like public work stuff going on, like that could show, like, yeah, I do make all this money, but I'm also giving back and helping. So
yeah.
there's no finger can get pointed at me. The government can't yell at me because I just gave this stuff. Like, no, these greedy billionaires now, like Elon Musk, that that is a welfare baby right there. Elon Musk is a welfare baby because all of his company success and money that they make literally comes from government contracts. If the government, that's why he got in charge of Doge. Like, you want to start cutting, seeing where government's overspending, start with your own, start at home, and how much money you're getting from the government to like do these things that don't give back, don't help most of the time. Like all you're doing, and on top of that, all you're doing is sitting in charge of these companies taking credit for what the workers there do that you don't do. Like people think he's this big bright genius, and he's not. That is a dumb man who talks so and makes you think he's smart, but he's not smart at all. He's like him and who's the other billionaire that does this? Well, I'll say Vivek. Him and Vivek are two like that meme where they're like two idiots looking at each other saying exactly. Like that is literally those two right there in charge of Doge, looking at each other saying exactly. Yeah, we should cut that money there. Like like ridiculous stuff. Like you are the welfare, but you are the problem. It's you.
Yeah, I think it's Penn graduates have not had the best run over these last couple of years. But like I feel like I don't know, like you have to be like some level of like a bullshitter
Starting to question
to get
Harvard
to
at
that
this
level.
point.
Low key, like
Harvard is
I don't
Ted
know, like it's
Cruz, and
just
I think JD Vance. It's like, yo, Harvard,
he went to Yale
what's
as
going
well.
on
Him
here?
and Vivek went to Yale.
It's like,
Well,
what's
I think
going on here?
Harvard was RFK, right? But
RFK,
like
Ted Cruz, like, what are we doing here?
I think
They're not producing
that
their
like
finest and
if
their
you
best.
I mean that's the thing, like the Ivy Leagues were never meant to be like situations where it's like the smartest and brightest come here. It was meant to keep power within like a select few families. Like if you really look at it,
Yeah,
I was actually watching a documentary about this. Like back when like schools like Dartmouth first existed, it was more so like to network and like keep money within the high society. And if you were like somebody that like really like was there to study and do what like you needed to do, you were considered like a fucking loser. So I think that like it was never about, and you can see that with like even JFK's like entrance letter to Harvard. Like Harvard
mhm,
seems like a great school. My father went to Harvard. He's a great man. I want to be a man of Harvard. That like
right.
an adcom person today would laugh at you if you didn't have like a 1550 SAT and a 4.7 with 30 G or 30 AP classes and you were team captain of this and you were, academically team captain and yada yada yada. So I'm like, if that like I don't know, it's just weird. Like I feel like we're at a point in society where it's like all of this is becoming very like it's really getting flipped on its head. It's like the ultra rich don't give a fuck about like anything but themselves. And they've been able, and I don't know who their PR people are, but I need to find them for when I run for office and inevitably get, like uh,
Same.
get brought up with some of the controversial statements and things that I've made. But like the
You
fact
know,
that their PR team has been able to, sell a billionaire that said he would do all of this and dig baby dig and drill baby drill, and these same poor white people in Appalachia that were poor 8 years ago are still going to be poor in 4 more years after all the tariffs, after all of this shit. He's been told all of these people lies, and he's a billionaire that does not give a fuck about anybody. And all of these people that are average Americans making $35,000 a year, doing God knows what, they're the ones that got swindled into voting. The people that, like, statistically speaking, like the people that earn, more, they were more likely to lean blue because they could see
Yeah.
through. Like, if you went to college, at least in my college, you were required to take either economics or poli sci or psychology as
Yeah.
part of your like gen eds. So we all got the spill of like, yo, tariffs are not going to be, sent to China. They're not just going to pay that. Like, so
Right.
in me as an economics major, it's been interesting for like the last 8 years. But like,
It's like
just
open the
seeing
schools
all of
back up.
these, yeah, it's like a
Refund
lot
the
of people,
schools.
and I hate to say it, it's just really sad to see a lot of people are going to be swindled out of things because I've seen it here in Virginia where it's like Trump campaigns on to Appalachia about like we're going to, we're going to open the coal mines. He told all of these people in Southwest Virginia, and I'm sure in your area and in
Hmm.
West Virginia, like, yo, like we're going to build, like we're going to do more coal. 8 years later, these people have lost their healthcare benefits and they are in a worse position than what they were because they believed this man and he sold them a dream. And at first, okay, the first time I can feel sad for these people. You were sold a dream, it didn't happen. But 3 times later, if you voted for the same dream 3 times and the first time it didn't work out for you, I no longer have sympathy for you. At this point, I'm just laughing in your face with them. So that's kind of like the point that I'm at, where it's like I hate the people that are gonna get caught up within the crossfires of these stupid tariffs and the Doge campaigns and all the other bullshit that's about to happen.
And the deportation stuff, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah, like all of that. Because I hate like the people that didn't vote for this, but those that voted for this, I have no sympathy for. You have seen this man lie to you time and time again. He's going to build a huge wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. We're still sitting without a wall. Mexico didn't pay for it. So he's going to dig and drill and do all of this, and now none of these coal mines have opened. And these people are sitting without health care. So I'm just like, at this point, you voted for it, you asked for it, you did it 3 times. I don't care particularly, and that sounds fucked up. Like I care for the people that didn't vote for this,
mm,
that saw that he was a con man, that saw that he didn't give a fuck about them, and I think a lot of people are realizing that a little bit too late. So, but it is what it is, and
yeah.
so I don't
And
know.
I have a little bit more sympathy because I feel like Donald Trump knew what to do. He spoke to the anger that they had in the rage, and he spun them around and like pushed them into a direction, or where they were like, "All right, we're on this march." Yeah, he sees us, he gets us, and that was one good thing. That like I'll give him that. His messaging and like knowing what people were mad about, speaking to it and pointing to a problem, or the person that was like responsible for, or made up person responsible for it. He does that so well that it encapsulates them. Like he speaks to their anger. um, and I like, I feel like them should do the same thing. Like right now, hey, the healthcare thing is a big anger thing. What are you guys doing? Oh, you're not helping people. Instead, you're writing obituaries to the CEO. Crazy. No wonder. No wonder they think you're out of touch and not for the working class. You have to like going forward. The Dems they did. Wow, I stuttered real bad. They definitely need to focus more on um like that anger of like what people are feeling, and stuff like that. Like I just wish they could do better at that. And like a lot of people are going to see uh a lot of people are going to see what's happening right now, what like was a lie, like what you were giving was a lie. Like I think the other day Trump said he's going to start with Chinese nationalists and deporting them, but a lot of his supporters were like upset because they were like, I thought you were deporting those Mexicans," which is it's like ridiculous. It's like he's lying to you. I don't even know if he'll fully do the mass deportation thing that he said he's gonna do, and like they're gonna be pissed 2 years in and can't do nothing about it. But
Yeah,
like
heads are gonna roll within these next few months, and I think people are already starting to see it. And
yeah,
you can even see it by like the Google Analytics trends of like, what is a tariff? Can I be deported? And like all of these things where it's like, you should have done your due diligence prior to November the 6th.
right. Like
So he
you're
told
seeing
you all these
people on
lies.
Twitter, like you're seeing people on Twitter straight up saying, "I regret voting for Donald Trump. I should have never gave him my vote." And it's like, this is, it's too late. It's too late, dude. But
Yeah, and that's what I don't know. It's just sad, and I think that it's going to be an interesting next few years. Hopefully, what I'm thinking is going to happen is it's going to be so dysfunctional that he's not going to be able to do anything because you still have a group of sane Republicans, and then now you're seeing the infighting of.
Mhm.
And mark my words, I'm putting bets on this, like dead ass. I think by March, let's say 28th, there's going to be a very public discourse between Vivek,
Mhm.
Elon, and Donald Trump. Like they're
President
going to
Musk.
disagree. Yeah, like they're going to disagree. Trump is going to be pissed off that Elon is getting more support or more, news time, more airtime than him. He's going to try to fire Elon. Elon is going to air out all the dirty laundry, and it's just all going to be a huge mess. So I think that it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's my bet on that. March 28th, 2025. By that time, we'll see the cracks starting to show.
Yeah, especially during those like confirmation hearings. Oh yeah, because a lot of them are already not feeling RFK. They're like, no, sir. So it's definitely we're in for a show for these next couple months. But midterms are coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not registered to vote, please go register so you can vote in the midterms. And please pay attention to midterms. It's going to be important, guys. Like we can slow down a lot of the damage that's probably going to come our way. Things are probably not going to be the same as we're used to, but hey, we move. Um, but yes, thank you, Bryson, so much for coming on to the episode today. As always, it's always a great pleasure. It's always a great time and a pleasure talking to you. And we're gonna wrap it here. Thank you for listening to the Undiplomatic Immunity Podcast. You want to plug anything?
Yeah, you can follow the Black Politics Show on YouTube. And yeah,
Yep.